AfroTech World 2021. I'm here with some people creating some amazing content and channels to display that content on. So QuillyTV is a streaming platform featuring 500 plus undiscovered, award-winning indie films, documentaries, web series, and kid shows which celebrate global Black stories. Deshuna Spencer is founder and CEO of QuillyTV. Welcome, Deshuna.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sean B is a content creator, and he's creator of the series Connect, the series season 1 and 2, which is now streaming on QuillyTV. Welcome, Sean B.
Hello, hello. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So, Deshuna, I want to start with you because I remember several years ago I had gone to China, and it was the first time that it dawned on me that the narratives we're shown about all the cultures and just other parts of the world are shaped largely by media we consume, if not entirely by media we consume. And so that was very different from what I actually saw when I was on the ground in many ways when I was in China. And so talk to me about how through your work, you help us reshape the way we think about Black people.
Yeah, really important question. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started QuillyTV. It really started with me not feeling like I saw myself represented and not seeing enough stories about Black life beyond Black death, Black suffering. I'm a former journalist, and one of the things about working in daily news is you spend so much time writing these narratives, and I really started to do some research and understood the correlation between implicit bias and media representation. And so when I started QuillyTV, I really wanted to use our platform to change that, and not just from an African-American lens, but from a global lens. Because if you think about, I used to do these pitch competitions, and I would say, when you think about Black fathers, when you think about people on welfare, all these negative stereotypes, this media sometimes sees that as like, there are no Black fathers. We know Black fathers are more likely to be engaged with children than any other group. We know that Black women don't represent the welfare, right? But that's kind of what we've been fed. And even outside of the US, as a kid, I used to watch these commercials, and you would see Africa, and the only thing you would see would be children with flies in their faces, people, poverty, or child soldiers. And it shows like a very negative view about Africa. And it wasn't until I started doing my own research and learning about what life was like on the continent, I was like, well, that doesn't represent what I've seen, and I really want to change that. And it literally just started with me doing my research, talking with content creators, seeing what was out there, and saying, we're not seeing these stories. The mainstream media is sort of packaging this view about the Black experience without, I would say, people who look like us greenlighting those experiences, or not enough of us. And so I really wanted to have a space in which we are the ones who control the narrative. We give content creators like Sean B an opportunity to show what it really means to be a millennial in Atlanta authentically, without some of the lay stereotypes we sometimes see in mainstream media.
So Sean, I want you to chime in on this too, because even domestically, this happens. People have a perception of Atlanta that may not always be true. In many cases it might be true, but in not all cases that we're fed by media. So talk to us about a little bit about how you introduce people to the culture of a space that you develop content around.
I mean, really with Connect, it was more so just kind of like what Deshuna just said, like showing stories that I'm not seeing myself represented, right? I didn't really see a lot of young, early 20s stories about being Black and being in Atlanta and still just trying to figure it out, right? And figure out what it means to balance life and work and relationships, and really try to figure out what do you want to do in life. And I was like, well, I'm in Atlanta, where a lot of Black culture is at. Why not just show my experiences and some of my friends' experiences and create a story out of that and see what it turns into?
For both, I want both of you guys to chime in this, and I'll start with you, Deshuna. So we're not monolithic, right, as a people, but it can be additionally hard for us to accept ourselves when our kids or others in our culture don't have Pooh Shiesty as our favorite rapper, or, there are other stereotypes that we may not adhere to. So how can we gain traction with content that may not be mainstream for Black folks, so, or is that something you have to focus on? So let's say I'm into science fiction. Like, how do we create content and build business models on that content when not all of us, like a specific thing as a distribution channel? I'm asking.
It's interesting because, like, I remember initially I was starting QuillyTV, investors would say, Black people only want to watch Ratchet. Black people, you need to partner with World Star Hip Hop. That's the only way you'll be successful. Like, well, there is a segment of our community that may like, World Star Hip Hop or Real Housewives or whatever, but it doesn't represent all of us. And so I think the beautiful thing about having a platform like QuillyTV is that we're able to show different sides of the Black experience. So like you mentioned science fiction, there are Black people who love science fiction. There are Black people who like documentaries. There are Black people who want to see history. They want to see historical fiction. Like there are so many, there are just so many types of stories that we can tell. And so for me, I think that I didn't really think about, like, I didn't adhere to stereotypes. I know the type of content that I like. I know my friends and my family members weren't monolithic when the type of content that they wanted to see. And I just said, I'm going to show the content that we may not see in mainstream media because mainstream media thinks we don't want to watch it, right? And so if you look at our data, documentaries, sci-fi, that's our number one genre, children's programming, right? I mean, the type of stuff you sometimes don't see on other platforms, that's what people are more likely to watch on QuillyTV. And so for me, it's really important to sort of dispel those myths about what Black people want to watch. And I'm always excited to share that with investors or potential investors who automatically assume that, we only want to watch one type of thing. And I think the challenge for content creators is, sometimes I speak at events, they want to say, well, what does your audience want to see? Like, no, I tell them, what do you want to make? Like what Sean B did, right? Like he saw a need, he created something that he wanted to build versus saying, I think this is what's cool and hot right now. And everyone's watching this particular genre. So I'm going to make something based off of what I think a lot of people want to watch. And for us, a lot of the content that we end up picking on QuillyTV is because the creator said, I want to tell this story. This story has been in my heart. This is something I really wanted to see, and I created, whether it was a documentary, historical fiction, or some sci-fi, some interesting sci-fi that they created, or even a horror, right? And I think that's how a content creator, that's what we want to see from content creators.
Yeah, and Sean, chime in on this because I'm interested in from a perspective of a content creator, like what is it content creators like you need? Is it, that courage, or is it that support, that resources to go create that content that might play on the edges? Yeah. If that's what you desire to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of things, right? Like one, it's that courage, right? It's to take that leap of faith to just go out and make something, because I have a very, pretty big production background and was always doing music videos here and there. But, my end goal was to always get into narrative work, into some type of scripted storytelling. And I remember it was like 2017. I was like, all right, Sean, it's time to stop doing that. Stop doing the music videos and really just write something and just put it out there. I don't care if it's a hit. I don't care if it's trash. Like, just go out and make something, because who knows where it could go, right? So 2018 end of 2017 came around, wrote a script, and I was like, Sean, your one goal for 2018 is to make this. Just make it, just do it. And did that. And it was completely self-funded by me. So, resources is kind of like, I have this thing where I don't like to rely on people like too much, especially when it's my baby, my idea, my project. I'm like, okay, because I don't want to blame anybody else but myself if it fails, so resources is a big thing, having the money to actually do that. And of course you have family members, you do some GoFundMe here and there to have people support you, which every little bit helps. But it's really just that determination and courage and perseverance just to keep going and do it. And you'll actually be surprised the amount of people that will support you when you, maybe not financially, but, will encourage you to keep going and will actually watch your content once you put it out there. It's very scary, because you're like, dang, what if it's trash, and you just have to trust in yourself and believe in God and put your best foot forward and just say, hey, you have to start somewhere. Because I think when I was writing Connect, one thing I saw was like, Game of Thrones and Insecure, like those original scripts is not what you saw on the TV screen, right? The original scripts were completely different. Maybe some things are the same, but you just have to trust in yourself and just put it out.
And so talk to me a little bit about, ownership of content. We'll start with you, Deshaun. So, talked about how you as a platform think about, the social converse, a mainstream conversation we're having about, being able to own what you create. Right. And so, especially when so many artists can, go directly to their, audience as a platform, Deshaun, like, how do you think about creating a space to where they can be, a coordinated effort around, amplifying our content?
For us, our content creators, we see them as partners. And if you see some of the mainstream platforms or some of the headlines, you've seen some Black creators who left, I won't name the platforms, but didn't take certain deals because those platforms didn't want to give them any kind of ownership, right? They just wanted to basically want them to write the script and say, we own it, right? And so the difference between us, like, the content creator owns the content. We're just getting a licensing deal to stream it on our platform. And so the reason we do that is because we want our filmmakers to be successful, and success for us means ownership. And just like I want to own my streaming service, and we don't have a lot of investors, so I own majority of my company. I think it's important for our content creators to also be able to have that option to say, I own this. Wherever money comes in, we get a big chunk of it. And so that's so important to me. And I think for a lot of content creators who are really focusing on trying to get those deals, sometimes we'll compromise ownership just for the sake of being on a platform. And that's kind of what really makes us different from a lot of the streaming services, in which we say, no, this is your baby, you own it. I know from a business perspective, it may not be what, a lot of platforms think is, maybe smart, but I think, because for us, we're about collective ownership, when it comes within the Black community, and collective means sharing our wealth. And that's what we do at QuillyTV. 60% of our revenue goes to our content creators. We pay them every single quarter faithfully. And I show them what our 6% revenue looks like. They see how much we make, and they can calculate, if they wanted to 100%. We keep open books. We want to be very transparent with our content creators about, the health of our company, and as we grow, then they grow.
I think that's like one of the greatest things about, the deals with Kweli TV is just that you are having that ownership. You are able to see that data, and your content is literally out there for the entire world to see, right? It's not just on, Netflix, which is cool or whatever, but, where it's a specifically Black owned streaming platform for a lot of Black content creators. Like when I'm telling people, oh yeah, Connect is on Kweli TV, go check out Connect, but there are so many other types of stories that are on this platform to support Black artists,
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go. So Deshaun, I was wanting to talk to you about like the engineering of this. So like, if the best way I can like give a parallel here is like, if I'm, on TikTok and I'm getting a lot of views, they're going to suggest me as, somebody other people who don't follow me should follow. Same thing with, other platforms. How does it work on Kweli, where if I've created good content, I'm Sean, and how do people find Sean if they didn't come looking for Sean?
So for us, we do like social media advertising, and we also do have recommendations on the website. I will say that what makes us different from other platforms that we don't necessarily rely on an algorithm for people to find content, because to me that is, we're talking when I'm trying to, I don't want to like poo-poo on other platforms, so I'm trying to say in a way it's not like trying to like throw shade on others. But when early on I started Kweli TV, I talked with filmmakers and said, what are some of the pain points you're hearing or seeing or having on other platforms? Number one was the algorithm, right? And so we know that we rely on the algorithm to find certain content on these other platforms. But if it could be a really great film, and if someone didn't watch it, the algorithm won't find it, and people won't see the film. So our approach is very different. We don't have hierarchy. We don't show favoritism. All of our filmmakers are promoted equally on the platform. We actually have like a little spreadsheet and schedule and a rotation schedule. Okay, this film was promoted this day, and so we're gonna make sure 3 weeks from now. So like everyone gets seen, whether it's on social media, whether it's through our e-newsletter. Everyone who's added to the platform gets noticed in our e-newsletter. Everyone sees who they are. We have something called Quilly Creators, in which we promote them on like our social media channels. We have podcasts and blogs. We do everything we can to promote our content creators outside of an algorithm. We even take a step further where, you know, one of the things we learned from our content creators, we used to have our content in alpha order, like by all titles. We changed that because we started to learn that customers are lazy. They're gonna get through like F or G, H, I, and then they're not even gonna go to like the, you know, Sean B would be cool. His connect, right?
Yeah, he's good.
Some of the films with the T's and all of that, like people would not take the time to scroll. And so what we do every month, we rotate the alt titles. So people don't always see the same thing when they first go to our title section. So we're very conscious about making sure everyone's seeing. Like that's super important to us.
So Deshuna, like when you started this company, because you have a two-sided ecosystem, a marketplace, or I should say, it's like you got to have the viewers in order to get the Sean B's, and you got to have the Sean B's in order to get the viewers, right? And so how in the early days of starting a platform like this, where you have this two-sided marketplace where nothing works without the other, you know, how do you get those early buy-ins from both parties?
Oh my God, I didn't know how I was gonna get anyone, right? And so, and also like my background's in journalism. I didn't start out in film or television or distribution. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I initially just started talking with filmmakers. That was like the first thing I wanted to do, because if I'm building a streaming service that I know will have these authentic stories that people can't find anywhere else, and I want to get good customers, I need to first talk to amazing filmmakers. And so I literally spent 6 months talking with filmmakers from around the world, asking them what they wanted to see, if they had a platform, and then start asking them for their content. And then they didn't know me from Adam. And then from there, that's when I started talking with potential customers about what do you want to see in a streaming service? What type of a Black-owned streaming service? Like, and then basically marrying the two together and coming up with the first crop of stories for the platform. We launched our beta. We had like 38 brave filmmakers who were nice enough to give us the content. We didn't know whether or not we were going to be successful, but we just really wanted to test the waters out with these really unique stories. And that's pretty much how it got started. I think for any company, right? I think that's the best way, the way to go, right? You talk to customers, potential customers, and say, what do you want to see? And that's kind of how we got started.
So Sean, I want to ask you this same question. Like she said she went out and talked to, you know, all these content creators, and, you know, some of them bought in. From your perspective as one of those people developing content, like, I guess the alternatives for you, if it doesn't get to one of those other platforms that, you know, we won't name, you know, I guess it's putting it up on like a YouTube or like a Vimeo, or like, so like for you, what is the value proposition?
I would say like one of the biggest things is that you're getting paid off of this, right? You don't have to really worry about getting 10,000, 100K views on YouTube before making a dime, right? You want for your end game, you want to be on a streaming platform. And that's something that Deshuna has already created, where it can reach people all across the globe and still get paid for it. Because while you're getting paid for it, one, you know, we all have bills, so you can pay off those bills, but then also you can use some of that money to fund your next project that you hopefully then gets you on Kweli TV again. And then, you know, you just kind of create that cycle where that's money in your pocket and money in Deshuna's pocket, so that eventually, you know, we can make a huge Kweli TV original that, you know, just goes crazy.
Because I think about, you know, one of the biggest platforms, I'll name the show, but I won't talk about the platform. It's already come up. But, you know, one of the ways it broke out in recent years was the show like Orange is the New Black. Like that was a show that helped people get aware that there was this thing out there that they can subscribe and watch shows. And so I guess my question for you is like, you know, what are some of the challenges you face with attracting attention from, you know, viewers? You know, when we live in an attention economy, everybody's fighting for attention. Is it purely about acquiring viewers, like users of your platform, Deshuna, or is it about simply creating content that might break through the noise? So are you looking for that one show that just like blows everything out the water, and now there's millions of eyeballs looking for where the heck did that thing come from?
Finding customers is challenging, especially in the early days, because people, people don't know who you are, they don't know you exist. And I would say expectation for customers is super high, right? The major streaming service, the first one, you mentioned, we'll say the name, right? Netflix, right? They basically create this bar for all of us to try to reach. And when I tell people like, Netflix, like Usain Bolt, right? Like super fast, like we're running slower than Usain, but we can still be in the game. We may, not be first place, but we can have our niche in their market. And so for me, getting customers is all about having amazing content, like number one. I think that the approach that Netflix took initially with having like Orange, I think they had two like original shows, like Orange is New Black and Breaking Bad?
Breaking Bad, yeah. Yeah.
No, Breaking Bad was on AMC. That was their breakout show. It was the show, the Washington DC show. I can't think of it right now.
Oh, House of Cards.
I know.
Yeah, House of Cards. Yeah.
Yeah, House. Yes.
That was it. They didn't have Tiger King. It was literally just those two shows, but they were really amazing shows. And so for us, I think that's important. Like our goal is not to be Usain Bolt and try to have a million shows out the bat, but really like having and connecting or having another really amazing original series that we can really build the business off of, while also at the same time still having a space for content creators who've been in festivals, who won awards, to have a home for their films. Because I think the challenge that a lot of Black creators are having is the big players, they're spending billions of dollars creating original programming that now if you have an idea for a show or have an idea for a film that's been a festival, they're not coming for it because they're spending so much of their time and energy making their own content. And if they do acquire it, they're not promoting it because they spent maybe $50 million on something else, and they're going to promote what they spent their money on. And so I think for us, as long as we're making sure we're refreshing our content, being fresh, being authentic, I think that will set us apart. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We are in a time where people are looking for that one hit show they're going to come back to. But also at the same time, with this, having one hit show will automatically mean it's going to be super success. And as someone who has a streaming service who's done a lot of research, you look at like an HBO Max or HBO, for instance, once Game of Thrones left, they lost like 40% or like 25% of their customers overnight. Like people like,
I'm like one of those people. As soon as the show is off, it's like, okay, it's time to stop this subscription.
Exactly.
I'm one of those people.
And that's why Netflix, oh snap, okay, we just can't have Orange is the New Black and House of Cards. We constantly had this meal of content. And so I'm very mindful of that. Before we, start really having originals like that, we do want to make sure that we're able to have something lined up that people just don't like, okay, well, that ended. Bye, Quilly. Like, no. But also at the same time, too, like we're looking beyond just content. We want to really build community around our platform. So, events and gamification and live chats and all these different things, loyalty, like creating like loyalty programs and stuff like that to keep people engaged. So they're like, okay, if I stick around for the next show, I'll get a free shirt or I'll get a VIP access to a film festival, things like that to keep people engaged, where it's not all about the next project or something that's transactional.
Sean, she said something that I thought was super important. And I want to ask you from the position of a content creator. And she mentioned like, you don't have to necessarily be the fast, like the Usain Bolt to have a thriving, business. And I think so often in our culture, particularly when you're talking about startups, but in general, what Instagram and such has done is make you feel like if you're not the number one person, then you can't build a life. So you don't necessarily have to be you yourself. You don't have to be, rest in peace, like John Singleton, to have a really good life as a content creator. You can make, a couple $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever, and not have that big blockbuster thing, but still live a really good life being a content creator. So I wanted you to speak from the perspective of, what are you chasing when you are trying to develop content? Is it more so about the purity of getting your story out, or is it you are trying to be, that I'm just trying to, like, to her earlier point, they said, well, what does your audience want? Like, no, what do you want to make? Like, how do you think about that from a content creator standpoint yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me, of course, you want your story to get out there, and you want people to, take something away from it. But one thing that's big for me is really impacting the next generation and telling them that they can control their narrative and that they can see me, some regular guy from Atlanta who created something, and that they can do the same thing and that they can tell their story and that their story doesn't have to be Black trauma, doesn't have to be, gang banging or something like that, or an athlete, that they can show, being a Black millennial or, a young Black person in their certain city achieving, they want to be a doctor, they want to be a lawyer. Oh, I'm struggling to pass the bar, things like that. And showing those different types of stories, and like you brought up the monolith earlier, to show that, that these kids can do sci-fi if they want to, and not just, silo them into one lane, but that there are so many lanes that they can get into. So that's another thing that I think about when I'm creating these stories, because I want my characters to be multifaceted, and to have all these different layers, so that a little kid who's 7 or 8, 9 or 10, seeing that character, like, oh, that character actually resonates with me, and I want to now create something based off of the character I saw in Connect or whatever it may be.
Yeah, so people want to learn more about Kweli TV, Deshuna. Like, where do I go? What do I, if I have an Apple TV, like what do I do?
So you can go to the website. Let me get the. We have plenty of shirts too on our website, but it's kweli.tv. If you are on any of our apps or any apps like Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, Android TV, iOS, Google Play for Android, you just type in KWELI TV and you can just download our app. And we're also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a TikTok account. We haven't quite posted there yet, but that's the future.
Yeah. And Sean, people want to learn more about you and your work and what you're working on. Like, how do people learn more about you?
Absolutely. You can follow me at Sean Bartley on Instagram, and then at _Sean Bartley on Twitter. Come find me. Let's chat. Let's talk about what projects you have going on. If you need any advice or anything like that. And let's chat.
We're talking Black content. Appreciate you guys. Sean B. Really appreciate you guys spending time with us.
Appreciate you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right.